maximizing productivity through silence. In the chaos of modern life, where constant alerts and noise pull us in multiple directions, silence is a secret weapon we often overlook. This chapter dives into the radical idea that true productivity doesn't come from more hustle, but from more stillness. Silence is presented here not just as an absence of sound, but as a state of mental decluttering. When distractions are removed, the mind can access what researchers call deep work states, moments of intense, uninterrupted focus. These are the moments when great ideas form, problems are solved, and creativity thrives. The author encourages us to start our day in complete silence. No phone, no conversation, just being. This sets a grounded tone. Then, throughout the day, the use of noise-blocking tools, intentional quiet spaces, and disciplined scheduling helps preserve mental bandwidth. Silence isn't passive. It's active preparation for excellence. Without the constant input of external noise, our mind becomes sharper, calmer, and more in control of its focus. This simple yet powerful practice transforms how we work, create, and live. The role of silence in enhancing sleep quality. Sleep, the essential reset for our mind and body, is deeply connected to silence. This chapter highlights how restful, uninterrupted silence before and during sleep is key to restoring health and clarity. Unlike machines that shut down, our brain keeps processing even when we're asleep. Noises, both loud and subtle, can fragment our rest and keep the nervous system slightly alert. The result? Poor sleep quality, grogginess, and a weakened immune system. Creating a sound-free zone at night, such as using blackout curtains, removing electronics, and consciously ending the day with quiet rituals, helps regulate melatonin, the hormone that governs sleep cycles. Even the silence before bed becomes a ritual of surrender and renewal. The message is clear. Silence doesn't just soothe us. It literally prepares the brain for repair. It's not about silence as luxury. It's silence as biological necessity. Silence and physical well-being. Beyond the mental and emotional, silence extends its healing touch to the physical body. This chapter explores how chronic noise acts as an invisible toxin, raising blood pressure, flooding the system with cortisol, and slowly depleting health. In contrast, silence activates the body's natural relaxation response. Quiet moments lower heart rate, boost immune function, and improve digestion. It's not magic. It's biology responding to peace. One fascinating insight is that silence stimulates hippocampal neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells in the area responsible for memory and learning. This means silent time is not just rest, it's rebuilding. Silence becomes a kind of nourishment, like food or water. When we deny it, our body shows the signs: fatigue, inflammation, disease. But when we embrace it, healing, regeneration, clarity, finding strength in solitude. Many equate solitude with loneliness, but this chapter beautifully separates the two. Solitude is not the absence of company. It is the presence of deep personal connection. In solitude, surrounded only by silence, we begin to hear the inner whisperings of our own truth. Our goals, our dreams, our pain. The quiet invites introspection, imagination, and emotional clarity. Without the noise of others' opinions and social expectations, we discover who we really are. The chapter points out that some of history's most brilliant minds, Einstein, Thoreau, Rumi, found their breakthroughs in solitude. It's in silence that original thought is born. We are reminded that solitude is not something to escape. It is something to enter regularly, with reverence. It is the training ground for self-awareness. Silence as a form of self-care. Forget facials and scented candles for a moment. True self-care starts with creating quiet. In this chapter, silence is reframed as the most underestimated wellness ritual available to us. Every day, We're exposed to stimuli, emails, ads, news, noise. And with that comes emotional stimulation, decision fatigue, and stress buildup. Silence becomes a place where the nervous system exhales, where the heart slows down, where the mind regains its center. The science backs this up. Quiet time reduces blood pressure, heart rate, and the stress hormone cortisol. It sharpens decision-making and enhances emotional regulation. But more than that, silence allows us to ask, "How am I doing?" and actually wait for the answer. In silence, we're not performing. We're not producing. We're being. That simple return to ourselves is the deepest act of self-kindness. It's in those quiet pockets of stillness that healing, renewal, and emotional clarity begin to flow. The art of letting go through silence. Letting go is one of the most freeing acts a human being can perform, but it often feels like the hardest. This chapter reveals that silence is not just the absence of sound, but the presence of clarity. It is in silence that we begin to untangle the emotional knots we've silently carried for years. Silence offers a space of restful contemplation where the noise of the world and the noise inside our heads finally subsides. In that space, we begin to recognize lingering regrets, disappointments, and unrealistic expectations. Through quiet reflection, we learn that we don't have to carry it all. We can set it down. Letting go, then, becomes a sacred release. It isn't forgetting, it's forgiving. It's allowing space for something new to emerge. And silence becomes the spiritual ground where this internal transformation begins. The role of silence in conflict resolution. We often think conflict must be resolved through strong arguments and louder voices. But silence shows us another path. This chapter introduces silence as a conflict diffuser, a way to pause reactive behaviors and access empathy before words are spoken. In silence, tensions soften. People are able to truly hear each other. Not just their words, but the emotional truths behind them. This kind of listening opens the door to understanding, compassion, and sometimes even forgiveness. Rather than escalating tension, silence allows it to breathe. It teaches us to respond, not react. In this peaceful pause, we begin to see others not as adversaries, but as fellow humans doing the best they can. With that, silence becomes not a break in communication, but the bridge that carries it forward. Using silence to enhance communication. Ironically, the most powerful communication doesn't always come from words. It comes from what we don't say. This chapter explores how silence creates space for thoughtful dialogue and authentic connection. We are reminded that communication is not just about speaking, it's about listening, reflecting, and being present. Silence communicates respect. It signals that we are not just waiting to reply, we are open to receive. When silence is used intentionally in conversations, it empowers others to speak their truth. It enhances the impact of our words, sharpens our awareness of nonverbal cues, and deepens the emotional bond between people. In relationships, personal or professional, learning to use silence wisely turns every interaction into a meaningful exchange. Personal growth through silence. If we want to grow, we must first stop and listen. In a fast-paced world that celebrates noise and busyness, this chapter gently invites us to reconnect with our inner compass through silence. Silence offers a break from external demands and social scripts. It becomes a mirror where we can finally see ourselves clearly, our true values, forgotten goals, and unmet dreams. With the quiet comes insight. With the stillness comes transformation. This chapter emphasizes that silence is not a luxury. It is a necessity for those seeking self-awareness. As we strip away distractions, we begin to hear the whispers of our soul, guiding us to deeper purpose and greater alignment. Personal growth, it says, is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you already are. The power of silence. Silence is not simply relaxing, it is medically, psychologically, and spiritually transformative. This chapter outlines how regular silence enhances brain function, boosts creativity, and supports emotional healing. The science is compelling. Just 2 hours of daily silence can promote neurogenesis, the creation of new brain cells in the hippocampus, which governs memory and learning. Silence also helps reduce cortisol levels, improving focus and mental efficiency. But the spiritual effects are equally powerful. In silence, we come face to face with the deeper layers of our consciousness. Creative ideas arise. Insights are born. Emotional wounds start to close. The mind, unburdened by distractions, becomes clear and open. This chapter encourages us to carve out silence in our daily lives, not just for peace, but for transformation. In the sacred space of stillness, we find clarity, vitality, and the truest version of ourselves. Finding tranquility in a noisy world. In a world overwhelmed by digital noise, emotional overstimulation, and endless to-do lists, this chapter is a powerful reminder. Peace isn't something you stumble upon, it's something you must create. The author walks us through the practice of intentionally cultivating tranquility, even in the busiest environments. A quiet morning routine, silent walks, or even a sound-free meal can shift your entire inner state. These moments give your nervous system a break from the constant alerts and attention-draining inputs of modern life. Silence is not the absence of life, it is the amplifier of it. When we remove unnecessary noise, we begin to see our thoughts clearly, feel our emotions deeply, and live more fully. This chapter urges readers to commit to daily moments of intentional quiet as a gateway to deeper serenity, even in the most chaotic settings. Silence as a tool for self-reflection. This chapter teaches us that silence is not passive, it is active transformation. When we sit in silence, we access the rare opportunity to look inward without distraction. The absence of noise becomes a mirror, revealing our patterns, beliefs, and values that often hide beneath surface-level thoughts. Silence, the author says, allows us to dismantle illusions. In the quiet, we can confront our deepest fears, test the beliefs we've inherited, and start the process of unlearning what no longer serves us. This silence is not always comfortable, because real reflection never is. But through this discomfort comes clarity. It gives us the courage to ask, who am I? What do I really value? Where am I going? Silence makes space for emotional intelligence, patience, and healing. It teaches you to sit with your emotions instead of avoiding them. And in that patience, we evolve. The healing power of silence. Silence isn't just peaceful, it is deeply medicinal. This chapter explores silence as a spiritual retreat for the soul and a recovery chamber for the body. Constant noise from the external world creates chaos inside us. But silence allows the heart to soften, the breath to slow, and the mind to return to balance. Through silence, we reconnect with our inner child, our wounded parts, and our truest desires. Emotionally, silence helps us understand pain. It offers us the space to process trauma, grief, or confusion. Physically, it allows us to notice subtle signals from our bodies, tension, discomfort, fatigue, that we often ignore. The mind and body begin to synchronize again. The chapter reminds us that healing isn't something that always requires action. Sometimes, the most powerful healing comes from simply being still. Strengthening relationships through silence. We often assume words are the foundation of strong relationships. But this chapter flips that belief on its head. Silence, it argues, is what builds trust, deepens intimacy, and nourishes emotional connection. In arguments, silence creates room for reflection rather than reaction. In everyday connection, shared quiet moments signal safety, acceptance, and presence. True listening happens in silence. When we stop planning our next response, we begin to truly hear others. Not just their words, but their emotions and needs. Even romantic intimacy, family love, and friendship grow richer when silence is welcomed, not as distance, but as understanding. The art lies in using silence not to build walls, but to build bridges. The art of active listening. Listening is not the same as hearing. This chapter introduces active listening as a revolutionary way to transform how we relate to others. Active listening isn't just staying quiet while someone talks, it's being fully present, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. It means watching body language, sensing the feelings behind the words, and resisting the urge to judge, interrupt, or fix. When practiced regularly, this kind of listening dissolves misunderstandings and strengthens bonds, at home, at work, and within ourselves. The chapter offers this timeless insight. True connection is built in these silences between words. That's where empathy is born. That's where trust grows. And that's where we become better friends, partners, leaders, and humans. Chapter Solar. Silence and Emotional Well-being. This chapter brings a profound reminder. Silence is not just an external condition, it is the foundation of emotional balance. When our emotional worlds are flooded with stimuli, conversations, and inner dialogue, we lose the ability to regulate and reflect. Silence, the author explains, becomes a kind of internal sanctuary. Through intentional silence, we gain the time and space to actually feel our emotions. Rather than reacting impulsively, we begin to sit with anger, grief, or joy. We become more emotionally intelligent, not because we read a book or attended a workshop, but because we listened to our inner weather patterns. Silence sharpens emotional clarity. It lets us witness rather than judge. It deepens empathy, helping us connect with others without projection or assumption. In the absence of noise, we don't just hear others more clearly, we understand ourselves more fully. The calming effect of silence on stress. Stress is an epidemic of modern life. But this chapter offers a cure that is ancient, simple, and free: silence. Here, silence is presented as a biological balm, a natural antidote to the hyperstimulated mind and body. The constant barrage of alerts, noise, and conversations keeps the nervous system on high alert. Over time, this creates chronic stress. But silence slows the heartbeat, calms the breath, and quiets the mind. Scientific studies cited in the chapter show how regular quiet time reduces cortisol, improves sleep quality, enhances the immune response, and even strengthens our emotional resilience in future challenges. Silence isn't just a tool for peace, it's a pathway to health. And the more we practice it, the more we begin to carry that calm into the rest of our lives. The space between thoughts. There's a space between every thought, a stillness, a pause. This chapter teaches us to notice that space and to live within it. In that pause between thoughts, there is no anxiety, no future, no past. Just presence, just peace. The mind, always striving to analyze or fix, finally falls quiet. And what remains is you. The author encourages us to stop chasing meaning and start experiencing being. In this space, intuition emerges. Authenticity arises. The ego fades, and we return to our natural state, whole, aware, and unafraid. The chapter paints silence as the soil in which real understanding grows, not by force, but by grace. When we stop identifying with the chatter in our heads, we remember that we are the awareness behind the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. The mastery of destiny. A conversation on fate and free will. Are we living out a script or writing one? This chapter dives into the timeless question of fate versus free will. It offers perspectives from ancient traditions, the Vedas, the Bible, the Quran, and finds a common thread. Life presents circumstances, but how we respond is ours to choose. Fate is compared to a river. You cannot stop its current, but you can choose how to swim. Some drift aimlessly. Some fight it. Others learn to navigate with intention and grace. The chapter explores how character, discipline, and mindset influence our outcomes more than external events. You might not control the stage, it says, but you do control your performance. Your response is your responsibility and your power. Ultimately, destiny is not fixed. It's shaped by these silent choices you make each day, guided by your awareness, values, and courage to act from your inner truth. Unlearning to be, breaking free from the illusion of control. The final chapter delivers a powerful message. The journey to truth isn't about becoming more, it's about becoming less. Less attached, less reactive, less conditioned. We are taught to seek success, love, enlightenment. But in this constant pursuit, we build cages of identity and expectation. This chapter calls us to unlearn, to peel away the layers of who we think we are and return to who we've always been. It challenges the need to control everything, our feelings, our relationships, even our personal growth. It shows how the mind, in its desperate quest to solve everything, becomes the very obstacle to peace. Real freedom, it says, comes not from mastering life, but from surrendering to it, from allowing stillness to undo us, from letting silence carry us back to our original self, open, whole, and free. The loop and the butterfly effect. This chapter begins with a metaphor. A butterfly flaps its wings, and the world changes. This isn't just poetic. It's psychological and existential. The mind is shown as a loop, constantly cycling through questions, habits, and emotional patterns that bring us back to the same place. We chase answers, but often remain stuck. The butterfly's single wing beat symbolize small internal shifts, a choice to observe rather than react, to pause rather than speak, that disrupt this mental loop. Silence and presence break the pattern. The chapter's message is simple and powerful. We search endlessly, yet it is the stillness inside us that changes everything. It's not about movement, it's about awareness. Just as a river never truly stops moving, so do we. But we can choose whether we're dragged by the current or flowing with it. The hidden weight of identity. What we carry defines how we walk through life. This chapter delves into the burdens of identity, our names, stories, ambitions, and traumas. We construct a sense of self from others' opinions, societal norms, and personal history. But over time, this identity becomes too heavy. We hold on to roles, fearing what we'd be without them. Yet the author reminds us, we are not our accomplishments or our failures. We are the consciousness that observes them. Even casual memory lapses, like forgetting a location's name, may carry subtle messages. Sometimes, the name reminds us of aging, failure, or relationships we haven't yet reconciled. Forgetting, then, becomes the subconscious whispering. There's something here you're avoiding. And remembering, that's the moment of transformation. The hidden whispers of fear. This chapter invites us into the emotional shadows. It begins with a simple scenario. You forget a word in the middle of a conversation. But what if that word wasn't lost by accident? What if your mind removed it on purpose? The theory is that forgetfulness often occurs when deep internal conflicts are triggered. Perhaps you're talking about justice, revenge, or legacy. Yet suddenly, your mind blanks. The truth, you might fear the very future you claim to desire. Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes, it hides in our grammar. When we avoid facing emotions, they manifest as blackouts, slips, or confusion. These are not bugs in the system, they're features. Warnings. Psychological smoke signals. The solution? Learn to pause. Reflect. Don't dismiss forgetfulness as carelessness. It's often a clue that something inside us is not aligned with what we are expressing on the outside. The hidden truth behind mistakes. Mistakes aren't just accidents, they're messages from the subconscious. This chapter delves into how small missteps, like grabbing the wrong object, taking the wrong turn, or calling someone by the wrong name, often reveal truths we aren't ready to admit. A doctor grabs a tuning fork instead of a reflex hammer and later realizes it triggered a forgotten memory of a critical mistake. Another person drops an item after it's been criticized by someone they resent. These aren't coincidences. They're moments where the subconscious says, look deeper. Freud might call it a slip, but the ancients called it revelation. The Vedas, Bible, and Quran all point to the idea that our deeper truths find a way to rise up even when we resist. This chapter teaches us to observe, rather than brush off, our small errors. Next time you mess up, pause. There might be a lesson hidden in what you weren't intending to do. The strange nature of forgetting. This final chapter is a meditation on how forgetting and remembering dance together in the human mind. Our memories, it says, are not archives, they're living, shifting stories. We recall what we are emotionally ready to process and forget what we fear. The story of a woman misremembering a love poem shows how our minds alter the past to reflect our present state. This is not deception, it's protection. The brain edits reality to help us cope. But sometimes, these edits also keep us from healing. Quoting scripture again, the chapter highlights how the mind is both a savior and a saboteur. Krishna calls the mind powerful but difficult to master. The Bible and Quran remind us that truth sets us free, but only when we stop hiding from it. Ultimately, forgetting is not weakness, it's a signal, a call to introspection, a prompt to uncover what we've buried, and to meet our truth with courage, compassion, and curiosity. A closing reflection, returning to the self. As this journey through silence, identity, fear, and awakening draws to a close, we return not to a destination, but to the beginning, to the place we've always been, ourselves. Throughout this book, we've explored the loops of the mind, the power of forgetting, the truth behind our smallest mistakes, and the whispers hidden in childhood memories. We've sat in silence, not to escape, but to listen, to hear what speaks not in words, but in stillness. We've learned that the mind is a master illusionist. It hides, it distorts, it protects, but it also reveals. And when approached gently, with curiosity, patience, and love, it begins to show us the deeper architecture of our lives. Not just the thoughts we think, but the beliefs we live. Not just the stories we tell, but the wounds we carry. The true power of the mind is not in shaping the outside world, but in revealing our inner one. We now know that silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of truth. That forgetting is not failure, but a sacred delay until we are ready. That even the smallest slip of word, memory, or movement can open a doorway to deeper self-understanding. And most importantly, we've learned that control is not the answer. Presence is. We cannot control the wind, but we can open our sails. We cannot erase pain, but we can sit with it. We cannot predict the future, but we can be fully alive in this moment. So now, as this book gently closes, may you remember this. You are not your mind. You are not your memories. You are not your mistakes. You are the space behind all of it. The stillness, the silence, the awareness, the witness. And in that stillness, everything is possible. Let the mind play its game. Let the world do what it does. But return, again and again, to this silence, to this peace, to yourself. Because that is where reality begins.